Hello one and all, and welcome to a difficulty comparison on F1 2019, the brand new game from Codemasters. I'm going to be looking at the 0 difficulty all the way up to 110, starting off at the lowest 0, I'm going to say percent, even though it's not technically correct. As you will have saw from the qualifying results that I've just shown, pull time, which I'm going to be keeping an eye on through each of these tests, was a 1 minute 32.987, and as we're using Australia as a proving ground, well, I'm pretty sure anyone that's clued up on this track will know that that is an absolutely shocking lap time. So we're getting underway now, seeing how these guys handle each other in the race, picking up a few places out of turn 1, and yeah, these 0% AI, look at how early they brake. It's just so easy to lunge up the inside. And of course the AI, even on the highest difficulty, they still have a slight difficulty on the first lap, although it's definitely the least it's been on any of the F1 games. I kept a bit of a tank slapper on there. But it's very, very easy to just make ridiculous moves on them. And on the power, you can see they're so slow putting on the power, so cautious, that you can just start in and out and make, pretty obscene overtakes on them. And it's actually quite difficult to film this. I had several takes at the lower difficulties even, because they go so slow, they just catch you out sometimes. And even though they are braking really early and getting on the power really late, they still position their cars as aggressively as a 110% AI. So they're not giving you much of an inch, even though they are, of course, obscenely slow. So of course, coming towards the end of the first lap, another thing we're going to be looking at in the test is my personal position at the end of the first lap of the race. And obviously, using the fastest car, the Mercedes, and again such a low difficulty, it is light work cutting through this pack, and by the end of the first lap we're in a comfortable second place with only our teammate left to catch. And of course, catching him isn't going to be too much of a challenge. We run around turn 1, get a bit of a warning for exceeding track limits, bit of a harsh one. Side by side, you can see they're still pretty quick at the top end, these AI. As soon as we get on the brakes, game over. He brakes probably 50 meters earlier than I do, and yeah, from there, just eased away from the rest of the pack, comfortable, and yeah, cruising towards the line to take the win. Yeah, pretty easy stuff. I wasn't expecting anything else. These 0% AI, pretty much anyone could beat them, even if you just picked up the game. I reckon you could take them down, because they are shockingly slow. But yeah, they're there anyway. So yeah, definitely as we watch the Mercedes guys celebrating their glorious win, definitely really hard fought. But yeah, well done to Lewis Hamilton on picking up that trophy. So we're going to look at the results here, and you'll see here, yeah, 20 seconds ahead from last, kind of in a 3-lap race. So that just shows really how terribly slow these guys are. But this is obviously just we had to do this 0%, the easiest difficulty, just to show that pretty much anyone could jump in and just beat them. We're 11 seconds quicker than them over a lap if you look at the fastest laps. So yeah, pretty damn incredible. Now we're moving on a little bit harder, 20%, and you can see it's pretty much exactly 2 seconds quicker, so still very slow. But yeah, it's not absolutely shocking. About 2 seconds quicker, about 20 difficulty higher. So that tells me that the Codemasters basically put every click upwards on the difficulty, they'll make them about a 1/10 of a second faster. Just based on, well, maths. Anyway, 20%, we're going to do some comparisons, see if they're a bit tougher to move through. Now remember, at the end of the first lap, and again 0%, I got to second, and I finished the race in first by a decent margin. Again, still able to lunge up the inside. And you can see, as I said, these cars still position themselves very aggressively. Kvyat squeezing me at turn 1 and then pushing me off, straight up pushing me off at turn 2. So yeah, these AI still don't mess around, even if they are much slower than me. As I pick my way past Lance Stroll there, getting stuck up behind Carlos Sainz. You have to wait so long to put on the power, because they're so slow coming out the corners. They wait to apply the throttle, and of course very early on the brakes. It's genuinely dangerous to race against these guys. And see, as I blast past Ricardo, these guys probably still, now probably in second gear, they're now full throttle. See, they're still moving to defend. Hulkenberg tries to defend from me as I slide up the inside of Magnussen. It's quite fun, to be honest, racing against these. You know, taking two cars into a braking zone is pretty damn awesome, but you can see we're struggling a little bit more. They are definitely, they don't exactly race harder than 0%, but they brake a little bit later, they get on the power a little bit earlier, just basic things really. They're, for me, a little bit more aware, and I think even though aggression doesn't really change with difficulty, I'd say the awareness of the AI definitely improves, which is pretty good to see. Just a little up the inside of Vettel here, so we're near the front, but of course we were into second by the end of the first lap and nearly first. We sit in P4, so there is definitely an increase. I wouldn't say I did a worse job of cutting through the traffic. I think I did a pretty consistent run over all of the tests that I did. They're not going to be 100% reliable, but you can kind of trust them, as I managed to push my way into second place there past Max Verstappen, and then Valtteri Bottas on the road, easily slow up the inside, take the lead of the race. A little bit later on, a couple of corners later than the last lap, and from there on, yeah, again, just comfortably cruising home. See, I find that for every 20 that I crank up the difficulty, they're about 2 seconds a lap quicker. Of course, I'd say pretty much anyone can beat these guys. Maybe people that just pick up the game will have a little bit of trouble with them, just because, you know, you don't know how these cars handle, you're going to be making mistakes. It could present a challenge for some, but definitely not for anyone that's got any sort of competence, I guess, in the game. So yeah, 20% AI, still very easy, still very slow. About 9 to 10 seconds slower than an elite driver, I'd say. So just as a basis for any like kind of less experienced drivers, if you're comparing yourself to top leaderboard times, if you're about 10 seconds off, you'll probably find yourself fighting these guys. But see here, we won by 20 seconds last race, we won by 6 seconds this race, so smaller margin of victory. That's going to come down in every test we do. So you see 20%, a little bit tougher, but for, I'd say, a competent driver like myself, still very easy. Now, 40%. So we're getting into territory where some drivers that have had a little bit of experience in the game might struggle. We see we're again about 2 seconds quicker, 29.1 from Sebastian Vettel on pole, Pierre Gasly second. Nice realism. So yeah, another 2 seconds pretty much, 29.1. Again, the vast majority of players could go for quicker. Just as a comparison, the top guys on this game will be getting into the very low 21s, high 20s, even mid 20s for some guys, the real aliens. So obviously we're still far off the pace of the elites. But anyway, going through turn 1, I find that the AI are pretty quick off the line in any difficulty. So yeah, that doesn't seem to change with it. I guess that's kind of fair because most of the guys that are running lower difficulties, they will use the traction control aids, which makes you a little bit quicker off the line. So yeah, that's gonna make a difference, and yeah, they are pretty quick off the line regardless of difficulty. Make of that what you will, but you can see a little bit tougher to move through. We're still cutting through these guys like cake as we move up on Danica, going into the points there. And yeah, I think on 0% I would have had Ricardo there, so it does show that they are just a little bit later on the brakes. You see though, he's still very slow getting on the power. Definitely a difference there. I see a slide up the inside, getting the move done. Romain Grosjean's still easy enough, like, you know, really none of these overtakes are challenging for someone with my skill level. That sounds really arrogant, but it's true. You see though, right there with Verstappen, he actually, on the brakes, he did put up a very small fight. It kind of forced me to run a bit deep there, so already on 40%. They're a little bit tougher, and I'm having to, you see there, I had to squeeze Magnussen a little bit. So yeah, they're still very easy to overtake, but they do put up a small amount of resistance, even though they're about 7 seconds a lap, I'd say, slower than me. As you can see as I close up on Charles Leclerc and comfortably out drag the Ferrari here, or do I? Ferrari's pretty quick in a straight line, but again, clear him on the brakes, no problem at all. So I believe I was 5th after the first lap, so slightly down on 20 again, and I swoop round Valtteri Bottas and now Pierre Gasly, who is about 4 positions higher than he should have done. I actually couldn't get that done there, kind of half-hearted down the inside. Yeah, he kind of shut the door there. Again, the AI at every difficulty will shut the door if you do half-hearted lunges. And again, he put up a bit of resistance on the brakes. See, the proximity arrow went red there, but Vettel, not much of a fight, easily through. Towards the end of the second lap this time, so bit tougher, bit more challenging. I'd say definitely some drivers will very much struggle with 40%. Obviously, I'm talking about a minority, but yeah, I'm just gonna cruise home. It's a bit harder. Yeah, it's nice to see the 2 Red Bulls in particular actually putting up some sort of fight to me, even at such a low difficulty. So yeah, you're starting to see the improvements in them. Still obviously far off the pace, not as aware as higher difficulties, but you know, I think for less experienced drivers, 40 could be a good difficulty to run to help you improve, because they actually do fight you just a little bit. So as we're going to run through there, again about 8 seconds, another 6 seconds really slashed off my winning margin. Still comfortable, and even in a 3-lap race I was able to come from the back to the front. Also driving a Mercedes, of course, you've definitely been taking that into consideration, and some of the higher difficulties I'd say that's going to become a factor when the AI are actually close to my skill level. But anyway, moving on now, 60%, it's definitely getting towards the point where an average player could probably see them off, but a bit of trouble maybe. Again, about 2 seconds quicker, Valtteri Bottas doing a 27.2 to take pole. So yeah, we're going to move on to the race now from the back. And again, my starts are just awful on this game. Like, even the lower difficulties, again, I don't think it makes a difference with the difficulty. But it's sad to see an AI that you're 6 seconds a lap quicker than just walks away from me off the line. Get a bit of contact with Raikkonen. I was finding myself getting caught on the inside of turn 1 quite often because I brake so much later. The AI just, they aren't aware of me. See, I lunge up the inside, so still you're able to do the classic lunge from F1 2013 days where you dive bomb about 8 of the AI and get the job done. Side by side with Lance Stroll. Not a comfortable place to go side by side in, but of course I've got a fast pace advantage over him, so it's not really an issue, despite the fact that I hit that curb. Curbs are pretty lethal in this game. So a bit scary on the inside, but we managed to hold it together. So looking at Magnussen now, we get Perez as well. So still, you're still able to get a couple of cars on the brakes. I actually don't get the job done there because I have some issues on traction. I'm really struggling with the traction on this game. This is my first day playing the game. I'll just use that as a bit of an excuse. Launch up the inside, and yeah, not the best move, but we get it done anyway. And the car trying to step out from under me there. So you see a couple of cars ahead of us. Now I believe in the last example at 40% or 40, seeing as it's out of 110, so it's not really percent if you're going to be a bit of an OCD. But yeah, I believe we're 5th and we're going to be 7th this time as we squeeze past Ricardo at turn 15. And closing on Hulkenberg there, again, much better run. I just about avoid his rear end there because he's even at 60. Getting into the higher difficulties, so I wouldn't say we're into the higher difficulties, but they're not exactly, you know, snails anymore, but still having to avoid him as we put on the power. Of course, we slip past Gasly with ease. Get on the brakes, and then turn towards the end of lap 2 now. Chasing down Verstappen just in front of us, the Red Bull man. It's a high-speed corners. This is probably one of the weaker corners from the AI I found. They just, in general, they struggle in high-speed corners on pretty much every F1 game. This one in particular, though, they're not great through the high-speed corners, I think, because they take less curb. But they make up for it in the slow-speed corners, particularly the higher difficulties, and you'll see that. Your AI pretty damn good in traction zones on this game. So I look for a move on to Charles Leclerc here. Of course, once he gets up to speed, Ferrari is damn quick in a straight line. And I'm struggling, so I decide to go for the outside here. to go to the final lap. Give him too much space and run wide. It's not the best move in the world. Get it done anyway though. And up ahead now, facing down Sebastian Vettel. Not exactly an overtaking spot against someone you've got similar pace to, but yeah, it's a bit tougher. But we're still able to pull off some unlikely moves, if you will. Down the outside of our teammate there. Had to avoid him last minute there, but we get it done anyway. Not probably this race was probably the worst I drove. I still won it, but yeah, it wasn't exactly the cleanest. Still managed to cut my way through the field though, and we come across the line to win by a pretty small margin of about 2-3 seconds. So coming from the back, it's a bit of a challenge to win. I still think I could have easily drove better in this race. I could have shut it down a lot earlier, but yeah, not too easy. Certainly a bit tougher, you know, just not exactly with the fight they could put up. You still shut them down after a couple of corners, really, and you know, squeeze them out, make a move stick. But they're definitely quicker. You see about 4 seconds of margin of victory this time, and about 3.5 seconds quicker on fastest lap. Of course, didn't have a lap in clean air, so that's not fully representative. Now 80%, it's starting to get into a bit tougher now. And you can see there they're doing 25s, low 25s from Sebastian Vettel there on pole. Still about 4 to 5 seconds off of the elite drivers. But I certainly think an average driver would have their hands full, certainly with 80%. It is pretty difficult actually for most guys, and you'll be able to see in this race, it does start to get a bit tough for me. So off the line again, dreadful start as ever. I think everyone's struggling with starts in this game relative to the AI. We're still able to lunge up the inside, not as effectively though. Get caught a little bit. Still in 18th place. We're going to be able to see the dive up the inside of turn 3 is a decent indicator. You can see not quite as successful as previous attempts. Kind of squeezed out by Lando Norris there. Side by side with Alex Albon. They're on the outside. Yeah, still able to make these moves stick, but with a bit more of a fight certainly. And I cut past Norris, Raikkonen, and look for Alonso and Stroll. I did brake early there, but I still think on the other difficulties I would have at least got up alongside him there. But yeah, a bit half-hearted, but they do brake considerably later. And I'm not having to, it was a massive tank slapper there. I'm not having to dart out the way to avoid them now as they come out the corners. They're definitely decent when it comes to the traction zones, and to be honest, not far behind me. Which kind of just shows how good the AI are in that respect. So we've got the inside of Sainz comfortable, and you see they're in a bit of a train here. Still make a lunge from quite far back on Grosjean. But again, I'm having to squeeze him out just so he doesn't keep the fight going. So I'm having to like utilise a bit more racecraft to get moves on, and Hulkenberg completely shuts me down there. Not the best, again, AI. Not exactly aware when you send a lunge on them, but it's only really in the higher difficulties it's more realistic, but when you get up alongside them so early it's not great to see. Slide up the inside of turn 1 though, no such issues. Daniel Ricciardo next up, and do we send it? Yes we do. Lick the stamp and send it on the man himself, Daniel Ricciardo. He gives me a squeeze coming out of turn 4, but yeah, managed to sweep around the outside. But this I find a bit more challenging, of course. I've won all of the races, but I sort of knew after struggling a little bit with 60 that 80 was going to be, yeah, nigh impossible to win the race. Make a good move there on Magnussen, as he was kind of squeezed out by Perez. So we get through on him, and Perez up the road. Not close enough. It feels like you're actually in a race now. You know, it's not like you're just driving around people in a different car class almost. You are actually like having to race properly now. I can see 80%, and that's why I think they're good for someone that's not too experienced, but they can handle themselves. I think that's a good difficulty. Like up behind Pierre Gasly, who's in a slightly more realistic position in this race. Trying to swoop running outside here, get a bit of a squeeze on, outbrake him. But again, I'm having to I had to pinch him into the apex there, just so he couldn't keep the fight going. And you can see there, I'm closing in on the leaders, but it's too little too late. We end up finishing the race in P5. So yeah, the first race we haven't won. weren't far away from winning. One more lap, and I think I don't know if I would have won, but I would have been up there, at least top 3. So that was it then. We come across the line in P5, our first loss, our first L. Yeah, so that was it then. 80%. Bit of a challenge, certainly. Of course, I'm in the fastest car, so if I was in a Williams, I reckon I'd probably not even crack the top 10. So it's not bad, certainly. Bit of a challenge. I feel like I said challenge way too much, but they're not snails, that's AI. They're about 3 seconds, I'd say. 3.5 seconds off of my pace. So still not great. Still not too much of a threat to me. But yeah, again, an average driver would struggle. Here we go now. And again, 23.3. This is on 100%. This isn't too far off of my skill level now. The gap between 100 and 110 is enormous. It's probably as big as the jumps between the other difficulties, despite the fact it's only 10 as opposed to 20. Yeah, we'll have a look at this here. Up the inside. Again, don't really jump up at all. Get pinched in the corner. I actually don't gain any positions. That's the first time that's happened so far in this test. So we're going to have to make up for it now. Stuck up behind Robert Kubica. Send up the inside. Gain some places. Not too many. And pitched on the inside, and Raikkonen swoops his way round. So I think 100 really, and 100 and up should only really be tackled by experienced drivers, guys that know what they're doing, because especially at this stage in the game where it's just came out, you know, most guys aren't going to be able to match up with them. You know, guys in the top 10% of players could probably be able to see him off without too much of an issue. But you know, they do offer some resistance to even the very best of players. I don't think anyone would be able to challenge for the win from the back in a 3-lap race against these guys. You see now against Lando Norris. They are fun to race against though. Like the AI in this game. I think the difference between them and the last few games, where the AI, you know, in the next gens they've generally been quite good. But the thing that's really sets this apart from the other games is that they're much more proactive. You know, you'll see them in the previous games. They kind of follow each other around in train tracks. They're much more active. They move around the track a lot more. It's much more realistic. You know, they're not perfect, and you know, a skilled racer would probably, if like a skilled driver would come up against an AI that's same sort of pace as them, they beat them in wheel-to-wheel combat 9 times out of 10. But it's still very fun to race against, so they are a challenge. As pit way past George Russell, up on the back of Carlos Sainz. And of course, I'm not exactly great at this game yet. I've still yet to really reach my potential. Of course, I'm not going to reach my potential on the first day of me playing the game. I'd say as I pick way past Sainz there. But these AI are probably better than me in the traction zones. You know, that's how good the AI are there. You know, for me, my equivalent difficulty is probably about 107, 108. For me anyway. But racing against these guys, I see it go side by side with Perez, get shunted out wide, which is fair enough because he was on the inside and was right up next to me, so he had the right to do so. Even if there was a bit of contact, lunge up the inside, it's still possible to make the lunges. I do brake still a decent amount later than them. But against 110, you'll see I do have trouble even with the superior brakes of the Mercedes. Side by side with Grosjean now, into the third sector. I'm able to see him off pretty comfortably, so that's me. I'm going to grab points now. So we'll go from first in the first 4 races to 5th. As I'm not close enough to Stroll, that's going to be 10th place in this race. So yeah, pretty encouraging. These guys would give like pretty much anyone a fair fight. I'd probably need about a 25% race before I'd be looking at challenging the top guys. Maybe even more, maybe even a 50% race before I'd be able to, I think in a 50% race I'd win pretty comfortably, but 100%, it's pretty tough, certainly, even for me. You see I had to pull out some decent moves to move through, and of course only barely squeaking into the points. But we're going to be seeing that, and you can see there, fastest lap is about 1.3 seconds off of my fastest lap in previous races. So they're definitely a bit quicker. Definitely a bit of a challenge for anyone. But here we go now, 110%. The highest difficulty and the pole time. Wow, see a 21.1 from Vettel. I can tell you that is slightly quicker than my own time trial time in a one-shot quali. That just sums it up really. The 110% AI are lethal in this game and should only be attempted by the very best of drivers. I'm not gonna touch them until I'm fully up to scratch. I was in the previous games. That was a pretty good match for the 110% AI, but certainly in this game I cannot get near them. For whatever reason, I've not cut out this section so you can enjoy a bit of menu screens. My deepest apologies, but here we go now on the grid. You're gonna see me really struggle against these guys, even in a much faster car. They don't lie down easy. These 110%, they fight you hard as well as being really, really quick. So I'm just saying, like a terrible start for the lane, my worst start all the races, big wheel spin. So I'm not even close enough to even attempt to move, because the AI, well, they do brake pretty early in the first lap, pretty much realistic actually. They block the circuit quite effectively, particularly in that first corner. See, I'm able to lunge up the inside, but again, get squeezed out by Russell, get a bit of a tank slapper, and Kvyat's up my inside. And I can see that I try and hold it round, and I'm just about able to do so. But I had the upper hand into turn 3, and he was still able to keep the fight going almost into turn 5. So that is quite impressive, certainly. And now on the back of George Russell, this guy's in a Williams. And you're going to see me lunge up the inside here, make the move stick. Big oversteer moment on the exit, that's not going to help me one bit. But we slot through ahead of the Briton. Williams, now I'm just going to talk about Williams. They're so OP in this game, and I don't think they should be as bad as they are in real life, because that's just, it's not fun in that way. It's a game, not a simulator. I'm sure some boffins at Cody's would disagree with me, but you know, I think they should be made a decent amount slower than the next slowest team, because seeing them fight in the midfield on occasion, it's just not right. You know, it's bordering on ridiculous, to be honest. But now this is on the middle. This is turn 3, lap 2. Go for a complete stupid move on Lando Norris. I don't know why I did that, but it has to, even in a Mercedes, it is bloody difficult. You have to really wait. This is the next lap. It's taking me a whole lap to get back in this position. Make another desperate lunge up the inside. And he gives me the squeeze, and I give him the squeeze back and get running outside of turn 4. It basically took most of the race to set up that move in a much quicker car. These 110s, they are, again, they're just lethal. And yeah, pretty much any driver would have a hard time. Even pros would struggle with them. Some drivers could probably beat them, but not handily. I don't think any driver could beat them by a decent margin. Come with a line in the P14, so another step down in the results. So yeah, definitely. So we're going to draw this to a close now. Ferrari on top, that's a rare sight to see. Don't think you'd see that at all in real life. But yeah, that's going to bring this to a close. 110, as you can see, I really struggled. They are not for the faint-hearted, that's for sure. Yeah, definitely too much of a challenge for most drivers there. As you see, I'm 9 seconds off the win. The fastest lap there from Charles Leclerc is 4/10 quicker than my fastest lap during all of the tests. So that pretty much sums it up then. They are beasts. But now I'm going to run through as you can see, the results there. I'm not going to go too into depth, but I'm pretty happy with them. There's a good little increase or decrease, whatever way you look at it, and the results, good progression. That's what I was looking for in between them. So that's quite cool. But I'm just going to run into what I'd recommend for difficulty level based on your experience. So if you're just picking up the game, I wouldn't throw it 0, I'd probably put it to 20. if you maybe played the game for an hour, 20 is probably fine. You might be making mistakes, but overall, so your racing might not be of high quality with them, but you'd have similar pace to them, I'd say. If you've got to grips with it just a little bit, you're getting a bit competent with it, I'd probably crank up to about 40. 40's still not, massively hard, but if you've maybe played the game for a couple of days, you'd probably be at that level, I'd imagine. Then 60. If you're reasonable at the game and you've committed to it, you want to pursue it, you're not exactly there yet, but you're getting there, you're starting to understand the car, probably chuck it on about 60. If you're a bang average driver, you've adapted to it, played the game for maybe a few months, you're maybe hitting about, you go online and you're about mid-pack in a lot of the races, I'd throw it on about 80. 80 is pretty good for an average player, I'd say. If you're a league racer perhaps, or you're just generally quite skilled, quite talented, and you've put a lot of time into the game, probably want to put it about 100. 100 is for like top 10% of players, I'd say. Definitely not to be taken lightly. They are pretty tough to beat from the vast majority, but if you're experienced, I reckon you can handle it. And then 110. Whew. You have to be a borderline esports driver to be on the level of 110. It's certainly too difficult for me. It's too difficult for most league racers. Certainly an esports driver could probably beat them, but I don't think anyone could beat them handily. They are beastly on this game. Watch out for them. Yeah, they are pretty damn tough. But that's going to wrap things up then. If you've stayed all this way, I commend you. Goodbye.